think when you first see the clip just tweeted out that Orlovsky says there's no way that Trevor deserves elite money, what he's really trying to say is what Trevor should do is play this year and then go get the extension. The problem, me and Taylor and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. Even if Trevor Lawrence had the stats that CJ Stroud had this past season in his first 3 years, he would still get about the same amount of money that he's about to get now, which is over $50 million.
Right, because you want to know what the real Achilles heel is to this Trevor Lawrence negotiation on the part of Trevor's camp. The fact that the quarterback class the year after 2021, that 2022 class, the highest drafted quarterback is Kenny Pickett, who's already a backup. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, Lauren, outside of whichever way the Tua Tagovailoa contract negotiations go, outside of that variable, it's not like Trevor can say, well, I'm going to bet on myself this year, and when I'm up for my contract again next year, we can reopen negotiations. CJ Stroud is getting $100 million more than what I would be getting right now, and so in turn, I can ask for $101 million more than what the going rate is. That's not going to be a reality because CJ Stroud won't be eligible for a contract extension. No one from that 2023 class will be able to, and you're not paying anybody in 2022. And so, look, I respect Dan Orlovsky's argument. I'm being quite honest, his argument is parallel to the good Josh Allen, who resides here in Jacksonville's exact approach last offseason. Mm-hmm. For everybody who clamored out there and yelled at Trent Baalke, why didn't you get this done a year ago? You could have gotten it done a year ago. Josh's camp and Josh himself believed he could get more money, that generational wealth that has become, such a mantra for him and his family throughout his football career. He knew what he could accomplish in that contract year, and he bet on himself, and he did just that. And that's how he earned a bigger payday than what he would have gotten. And so, yes, I understand the thought of bet on yourself, get more money after you do perform up to the level of expectations. Number one, you can't always guarantee that. See DJ Chark in a contract year here in Jacksonville after making a Pro Bowl his second year. And I understand wide receiver position, wide receiver 1 versus 2, very different. But I just want to throw that one out there because that's somebody who bet on himself and it didn't come to fruition of recent memory. And number two, even if you are Trevor Lawrence and you bet on yourself and you hope that the market rises in value, you can't even guarantee that. Like, what would you be waiting for? Dak Prescott signs a lucrative free agent deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah, well, he's 7 years older than Trevor. That's going to be a different contract situation than to what Trevor's going to get at this juncture or this time a year from now.
He is in such a unique spot because of the way that the other quarterbacks from the 2021 class have gone. And obviously, we've talked about it a lot. They're all on different teams other than Trevor Lawrence. And a lot of people, I think, because that generational word was thrown out so much, people automatically attach that to everything that he's done. And that's a lot of people's kind of geared towards what he deserves. But to me, this video was a little weird to me because I feel like it was a little contradicting in certain spots because I feel like it was starting with like, he doesn't really deserve that elite money yet because we haven't seen it. But you're paying these guys for what they're going to be, not what they are. But Trevor could also prove himself this season and should wait to do it. So, but in Dan Orlovsky's defense, he's a quarterback guy. So he, in his mind, and when you're talking about the business side and what the NFL may want or what the team may think, he's talking in the front of this, from what I'm taking it, the front of this video, more so what NFL teams and what the business side is going to be approaching this Trevor Lawrence contract with. And then towards the end, he starts sliding towards, but I'm a quarterback guy, and I feel like the best possible situation or scenario for the quarterback is to bet on himself. But for Trevor, I think it's such a unique situation, like I said, because of those quarterbacks. But in addition, I think there's still a good amount of room to grow. And so for him, I feel like for these two teams, which it's always a compromise, it's always going to be the player and the team meeting somewhere in the middle where they both think it's best for each side, which not every contract ends that way in the NFL. But for this situation, I feel like they're going to have to do that because it's going to be the Jags hoping that this next season is this leap for Trevor and we see a full season and everything kind of finally starts to settle in and looks well. And for Trevor, he's hoping that, obviously he wants that too, but he's hoping that the money matches what he believes that he can do in these next couple seasons.
Yeah, I think be prepared, Jaguars fans. The moment that Trevor's extension goes through, all of the stats and the comparison to him and Gardner Minshew and the comparison between him and CJ Stroud and the list will go on. Mac Jones. Everyone will now be outside of Jaguar land. Everyone will be like, he did not deserve this money. And again, if you watch him play in and play out, especially this past season, and that's why the transition's perfect to PFF. PFF has him 3 in their players of top 25 players under the age of 25. 3. And that's because they watched football and they knew that he played incredibly well last season, 2 seasons ago, and then incredibly well this past season until he got hurt.
Now, a disclaimer there. I'm not suggesting, Lauren, that PFF is the almighty because I think that even...
There's a lot of kooky stuff.
Doug Peterson himself has at times questioned some of the stat nerds out there in the universe, including our beloved friends at PFF. But with that said, for argument's sake, in terms of those numbers and metrics that they track year in and year out, there's one specific line, and I've spoken a lot on this program over the last few weeks about the revisionist history that so many in this town have following the Bengals loss on Monday Night Football the first week of December 2023. It's as if everyone forgot about those first 11 games, the numbers that came from those first 11 weeks of the season, and also forgot the fact that Trevor was having his best statistical game of the season against the Cincinnati Bengals before he got hurt. So let us get to this one very important graph from PFF's top 25 under 25. Trevor Lawrence earned the highest overall grade of his career in 2023, and during the first part of the season demonstrated why the Jaguars selected him with the first overall pick 3 years ago. Lawrence's 88.1 overall grade after 13 weeks last year ranked 5th among quarterbacks. You just heard Dan Orlovsky say, we need to stop ranking the top 5 quarterbacks, we need top 8. After 13 weeks last year, Trevor Lawrence was comfortably in the top 8. I don't think there is an argument if we want to go off the numbers and stats like so many of you on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosure. So many of you on Twitter want to say, if we're going off the numbers, he was statistically speaking a top 8 quarterback the first 13 weeks of last year. And you can say all you want, well, in the crunch time down the stretch run of the season, he faltered. He also had 4 injuries in those final 5 weeks of the 2023 season.
Yeah, and really technically 5 because there was a finger that was also that we always just kind of like glance over, but he also had that on the injury report as well. So it was really 5 injuries, that one, of course, just being the most minor of them all. But Taylor, I think some people would say, well, the offense wasn't great. So yeah, maybe Trevor was playing great, but the offense wasn't great. And so therefore, Press Taylor shouldn't be the play caller. They should have done more on the offensive line, and they don't have enough good receivers, right? Like that's where I think the other group would go for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think we see it when you read the comments under this Dan Orlovsky video, the amount of back and forth and like far on each side there is. Like some people, he's way overrated. He's not even a top 15 quarterback, to people being like, no, pay him the big money right now, and posting that graphic of, pre-Trevor injuries, the ankle injury last year to post-Trevor ankle injury last year. I think other people are going to point to the turnover, 60 turnovers in these last 3 seasons. That's something that cannot keep happening. And I know we point to Josh Allen, but Josh Allen also hasn't won less than 10 games since his second year in the NFL. So everybody's going to point to each side of that. And when we talked about, you just mentioned, Lauren, the people are going to start posting the Gardner Minshew graphics and all of the things of why he's overpaid. That happens to almost every single quarterback. I mean, maybe Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are probably the only 2 that I feel like didn't get backlash. Dak Prescott when he got signed, Kirk Cousins when he got signed, Jalen Hurts when he got signed, Justin Herbert when he got signed. We saw all of these comparisons of like, okay, well, you can't win in big six in the like important. Even Lamar, and he has 2 MVPs. Granted, one was last year, but already had an MVP, and he was even getting backlash when it came to what his contract should be and what he's deserved. And these are guys that are winning 10, 11, 12 games every season. So it's going to happen. We're just going to have to prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing here is already telling people just get ready for that.
And you just got to hope the mistakes lessen. Like you got to hope that this high number of fumbles and turnovers lessen, because I think at that point a lot of people will be more accepting of the contract, at least here.
Yeah, and I do think Bills Josh Allen, there was a lot of concern about him early in his career, but he was able to, and he had a lot of turnovers as well, but he was able to show everyone that he can be counted on in important situations. And even though his team has not yet made it to a Super Bowl, they still believe that he can get them there.
Wins cover up a lot of things, do they not?
Yeah,
Winning cures all, and it covers up a lot of missteps, whether that was Josh Allen perhaps not having to take on as heavy a load in the second half of last season for the Buffalo Bills when Joe Brady was the play caller, or the fact that when he does have some boneheaded turnovers, he also throws 2 touchdowns and they win the game, so therefore it's covered up. Or even to the Jaguars point, which in the first 11 weeks of the season, there were a lot of shortcomings. There were a lot of things at play that made you kind of look and be like, I don't really know if that's sustainable or not. But they were winning. They won 8 of those 11 first games, and so therefore, no one said anything. Once the losses started piling up, suddenly that's when so many of those shortcomings suddenly became a glaring issue.
And to your point, the Bengals game, if Beathard's pass is called complete instead of the refs overturning that, then the Jags win that Bengals game potentially.
Are you talking about the Anton hold or?
Yes.
Yeah.
If they don't call holding.
If they don't call holding on Anton, or if Brandon McManus makes the field goal right after Trevor's hurt, which, look, I understand everyone was shook in the stadium,
right?
Players included. But if either one of those two things happen, the Jaguars win that game. Trevor probably doesn't play against Cleveland the next week because they're in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed. And we're talking about a very different outcome to the 2023 season, but didn't happen. And by many accounts, perhaps that's a good thing because now that has forced this team to look itself in the mirror and evaluate where those shortcomings were a season ago.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of glad it didn't because I'm afraid that they would have stayed stagnant like they did the season before, and it wasn't obtainable. I just feel like once you got to a certain point of the season and people had film on you and things were starting to get figured out, it was a very predictable offense, and that's just kind of what it came to be. And then the injuries even piled more onto that, but there wasn't any moment to me where they looked like a scary offense that people didn't want to face, and I feel like they have the opportunity to do that now with some of these changes they've made this offseason, obviously with Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis.